Hi guys, I'm Lily. Welcome back to my studio. We are going to start painting this coastal scene in oils from Martha's Vineyard. If you didn't already see the first video in this series, it is linked down below if you want to see how I prepped my canvas and got ready to paint. Otherwise, we can dive right in. So I have a sketch done. Again, if you didn't see the first video, I did loosely sketch out the composition in Posca marker. As I discussed in that Posca pen, it's an acrylic paint pen. In that video, you can also just use a number 2 pencil. You can use charcoal, oil pastel, regular pastel, whatever you want. I do have my photo reference printed out here, very small. My printer was almost out of ink when I did that. So you can print yours out or be looking at it on your phone. Again, you can find the exact photo that I used also linked down below. And we're gonna get started. So every painting that I do, I go about a little differently. I sort of assess for each painting, like what is needed. Do I need to, if it's a portrait, I start with the face almost always. As I say that, I look at the portrait. I'm working on it's hanging on the wall opposite me right now, and I actually started with the sky. So it just depends on the painting. In this one, I am going to start with the sky. We're going to just get that out of the way, and then we're going to come in here. So I like to do that with oils. As you probably know, oils stay wet for a long time. And so if we were to do down here first, I would inevitably be rubbing against it while I did the sky. So that's why I like to just start with the sky, and I'm going to get that out of the way. So for my sky colors, I am using Cerulean blue and phthalo blue with titanium white, and you want to use a little bit of like a complementary color to sort of dull down the chroma a little bit. Otherwise, it's unrealistic. Skies are not, as brilliant deep blue as they would be were we to use just a pure cerulean or cobalt or ultramarine, whatever it is. So you can use, I usually like to use like a yellow ochre or a transparent orange. What I happen to have here on my palette that I'm using is the Indian yellow that I'll use a lot in the landscape. So it's a little bit goes a long way. I don't dull it down too much, especially because at least in my painting, I'm not going for a super realistic, I'm not always going for realism. I want to create this like bright, brilliant, beautiful day. So if you want to be more realistic, and I talk about this in the first video as well, choose your colors differently than me. If you want a gray day or something like very foggy neutral, or if you want a sunset, that's why I chose such a sort of plain reference photo that has good bones, it has good lines, but the colors are very not exciting. So I did that because, if you want to make the sky this beautiful sunset, you should do that. If you want to make it, have the sun right there really bright in the middle, do that. So I'm going to just do like a beautiful blue sky day. A little too much Indian yellow stuck on that brush. So, but, oil paint is so easy to move around on the canvas. It's, it's not really a big deal. I forget what artist it was who said that. There's a quote though that says oil painting is mostly just moving paint around, and it is so true. If you accidentally, get a color on here you don't like, you can just take a paper towel first of all, wipe it off, or you just, it just blends right in. It really blends in so easily. So I just said how if you get that straight blue on, it's going to look unnatural. This is what I was talking about. This is clearly way too much. So in there. But again, everything just blends and mixes. Now, if I were, this sky is going to be pretty fast for me. So depending on what you are doing for your sky, or depending on your speed, how quickly you paint, definitely pause the video so that you can go at your own pace. If I were doing, you know, like a bright sun, which, you know what, I'm actually going to do that. I am going to do a bright sun. We're going to do that. Okay, just decided. It's going to be right here. Decided just in time. So I really, when I do that, I just start out with like a white circle. It's sort of like a placeholder. Now there's at different times the sun does look different in, you know, a reference photo. I don't know, as I was talking, I was like, why am I doing just a boring green sky? So, I mean, that really could be the moon. We could also have that be like a full moon. No, it's the sun. So, okay. I'm going to do around it because there's going to be a halo. So there are times where the sun's rays sort of come out like this, and there's other times where it's more an even. I did a commission recently with this really beautiful, bright, full sun, and it was just evenly glowing out, and I really liked that. So I think I'm going to do that again here. Yeah. All right. Glad we worked through that together, and I caught myself in time to do what I really wanted. So yeah, I'm glad about that. I'm glad I decided that. You can always change your mind. Again, like, it's really easy to just wipe it off. Another thing I want to mention here, if you want to do more of an underpainting, whereas I just did this flat color across it of the cadmium red light, and then I traced in, you know, my basic lines. I'm going to show you down here after we do the sky, how you would do an underpainting if you wanted to, using Gamsol. And this is something I don't really do. I try to stay away from solvents. I use it when I need to correct a mistake, but I don't like really find that they're necessary. So traditionally, you know, oil painters used turpentine. That was, you know, why oil painting was considered so detrimental to one's health. And today we have other options. There are mineral solvents. Gamsol is the one that I keep on hand. I literally had, I'm going to show you, where is it? Oh wait, no, there. No, it's out of reach. Well, anyways, I had a tiny jar this size that I used since 2018 until last week. I literally finally went out and bought another Gamsol. So that is how infrequently I use it. This tiny jar, and it wasn't empty. There was still a little in the bottom, lasted me 6 years. What motivated me to go get a new one was I ended up really needing it for a big mistake that I made in a painting. So when you want to use the Gamsol is if you want sort of like a roadmap on your canvas of what you're painting, and you're planning to definitely come in and you want to do multiple layers. So for my sky here, there's no reason to use that because I am doing one solid layer on the sky, and then I'm done. Now, if I were painting something with more like realistic cloud scene, that is when you would use the Gamsol, and that's when I would come in and do a real underpainting using a paint thinner like Gamsol, and I would do a true underpainting with all the different values mapped out in my cloudscape. But since I'm doing more of an abstract sky here, I'm literally just getting the paint on my brush and doing these vertical strokes. And I usually like to leave it like that. You can come back at the end afterwards and smooth them all out, and it makes this just beautiful, like perfect blended sky. So sometimes I do that, but today I'm planning to leave these vertical strokes. I really like how it looks. That's what I do a lot when I'm painting water. Is I map out all the colors like this with these vertical brush strokes, and then at the end I come in with a bigger brush and I just smooth it over like a couple times. And I love how that comes out. Okay, so I'm going to speed through this sky. I'm going to speed up the video a little just to get the basics of the sky laid out. And I will see you back here in a minute. Again, feel free to pause right now if you are working more slowly through your sky. And we're going to finish off that sun together. Okay? Okay, so we're back. We have our sky done. If you haven't finished your sky, like I said, just feel free to pause this. Finish up the blue part. If you're going to do the sun with me, that's what we're going to do right now. So essentially, we're going to have this center is going to stay bright white. And this is something that we can come over later at the end. Again, I do most of my paintings in one layer, which is what I was saying about the sky, but that doesn't, there's no hard and fast rule. It's not like you're not allowed to, come back in and go over one piece of it later. There are no rules. You make the rules here. That's the beauty of art, really. There's really only the one rule of oil painting, which is fat over lean. So if you do come back in over this, just remember you want to have more linseed oil mixed into whatever paint layers you put on top. So, I mean, you could go over this whole sky again if you wanted, as long as you had a little bit higher concentration of linseed oil, which is just, in your jar of linseed oil like this. I usually keep it in a little cap here next to my palette, or you could just pour it directly onto the palette. So that is literally the one rule in oil painting. So I'm gonna get a little bit of linseed oil on my. Okay, so we're just gonna start coming around. It's funny because when I did this, whenever I do a bright sun like this in a commission, it's a process. Like, I'm so nervous and careful, because I just want to get it exactly right. So it is fun to make sure, if you're an artist and you do commissions, it's really nice to have other paintings that you're creating for yourself, because it gives you that space to just play and like do what you want. Okay, so I just flipped the brush over to blend a little of the blue part into that white. And now I have to decide like how I want to do this, because so I have these choppier brush strokes out here, and then I'm doing this really like smooth sun. So that's one thing that I need to think about here. I think I want to somehow keep these brush strokes. But first we're going to make sure we keep the core of that sun just that bright white. Once you get any blue in there, it's like all over. Like, you will never get it out unless you get like a rag or a paper towel and just like scrape it off, because oil paint will just keep blending in forever. The tiniest bit of blue into this white center, and yeah, it's there forever, basically. I'm trying to say. All right. So again, I had no real plan, as you guys saw. I switched up what I was doing at the last second, and now I'm just seeing as I go how this ring around the sun really works out. And I think it's working. I might start on the bottom, and yeah, I am. I'm staring at the camera because I like, this is a trick that I teach all my students, and you have to try it. It sounds crazy. It sounds legitimately like I've lost my mind, but it's true. If you just take your phone and look at your painting that's in progress through your phone, it's there's something about that that really helps you to see if you're on the right track or not. So I'm not staring at the camera. I'm staring at the painting in the camera because it does really help me to get a handle on how it's looking. And I don't know why it is. I'm just telling you guys that it works. And we always do it like in my in-person classes that I teach, and it totally, everyone agrees with me. I swear, they're not just like trying to make me feel less crazy. It's a possibility, but the neighborhood's kind of loud out there today. There's usually lots of gardeners and stuff, but not usually a lot of horn action. All right. I think if I should do something like this. Kind of like I'm trying to do like a smooth sun in the middle of like a brushstroke, choppy brushstroke sky. Maybe I need to just embrace the brushstrokes and add that into this sun as well. I think that might be what we need here. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this, but this is definitely my process. So I like to see how I'm feeling about painting as I go versus having a full plan. Now, when it's a commission, I try to have a real clear plan. But even then, I leave lots of room to readjust, reevaluate. I will take a lot of, I'll take a week where I'm just like going to look at it on the wall here and like really decide how I feel about it. So I think what I want to do here is okay. I'm going to make these brush strokes a lot bigger and choppier. And, if you can see how well the paint is blending still, like at any moment you can change your mind. So I could still decide, you know what? No, I want this to be a totally smooth blue sky. And we could do that in probably about 5 minutes. Like it's really easy to switch things up. And that's what I teach my students, and I also tell my clients, because when I'm doing a commission, you'll always, there's some people who don't mind saying exactly what they want, but there's always those people who want to make it simple, not be a pain. So I always try to overemphasize to my clients, like, it's actually really easy. Like, trust, like, you can change anything. And of course, yes, that backfires sometimes, and you get, you know, the ones who want to do what's actually a really complicated, difficult change at the last minute. But while the paint's still wet like this, it's so easy. I had a client one time want me to shift. I had these sails, all these sailboats, and there was the sun coming through them. So like there were very distinct like shadows in the colors of the sails. It was very like intricate and complicated. And this client wanted me to shift everything over by 1/4 of an inch on like 2 of the sails. And you know, that's what happens because I'm so encouraging of like, no, tell me like anything that you want to change. It's really easy. That was not easy. um, that was not easy, but you know what? It ended up being so great in the end, and I loved how it came out. And it definitely gave me some really good practice in fixing mistakes, which I mean, it wasn't a mistake, but it gave me good practice in changing something that felt really difficult to change. So, I'm just sort of thinking in my head where I want to go with this. All right. Okay. This is definitely interesting. I've never done a skylight quite like this with that sun. I think I'm going to leave the sun for now and decide what I want to do with that in a little bit. Next, I'm going to show you guys. So I would personally dive into this right away, but we're making this a 3-part video series so that it's easily sort of digestible and you can do it, break it up into parts, because when I do a painting like this, I'll just do it in one go and I'm pretty fast. But I know that's not how most people work, and it's not super helpful all the time to my students. And if you look, there are other videos here that are all in one go, a little painting. So that is available if you work like I do. But what I want to show you guys is how you would do sort of, okay, so go around the sun one more time before we move on to the rest of the painting. Need my canvas to wipe that brush off. All right. So next we're gonna move on. I am gonna come in and do another layer of white over this after it dries. But for right now, I've really got it just about how I want it. Okay. It's so hard to stop. Drives me crazy, that mark where it shows 3 stops. Okay, so I think that's looking good for right now. Again, we're gonna like come back and make the very center of that sun like really solid white after we start on the bottom. So what I do for that brush is done. All right, what I do for the rest of the painting is I really want to lay out my darkest values first. One of the things I've noticed with landscape paintings is that now I'm just talking for myself here. This might not be true for other artists. What I find is sometimes I can forget those darkest values. So there are times where, you know, I'll be looking at a painting for a while and I'm like, what? This isn't like something not great about it. There's something missing. And eventually, inevitably, what I always come to realize is that it's missing a full range of values. Now there's 9 values from white to black. So a full value scale in a painting is going to include all of those, all 9 of those, like the full range. And I see this, I do notice it in other paintings. I notice when an artist is really good at getting those dark values in there, they don't shy away from that. I think sometimes artists, and myself included, you can shy away from those dark values. You want everything to be light and bright and colorful and beautiful, like bright sunny day. And on a bright sunny day, the brightest sun creates the darkest shadows. So like the brighter the day, like the darker realistically the shadows are going to be. So even if you're not painting, even if you're not trying to create like a quote unquote realistic scene, which, you know, I'm not, that it's going to feel more believable to the eye if you have all of your dark values in there. So I think it's just like, it's the most important thing that I literally am always reminding myself. So again, this is like, this is, you know, my own biggest lesson when I'm painting landscapes, that I'm always trying to remember and remind myself. So yeah, I just always want to make sure that I have those darkest values in there. Okay. So again, that's less of a roadmap. I mean, it goes along the road here, but it's less of a roadmap than it is just me trying to ensure that I don't forget something important. Mixing up a little gray here for our cottage. I might not have the right colors. A little transparent orange, that'll help. I thought I was grabbing a different color, but this will work. Green. Orange. Yeah, this looks okay. Oh, why this still feels really green to me. And remember, you can always come back over this, but when I have a small house like this, I don't know, I just kept looking at it and feeling like I was going to accidentally forget it and paint right over it. There is white trim on this, and I'm going to come back in later and do that, and that will be part of the detail work that we do in the final video for this series. Okay, so you can see I'm not using like a tiny brush or anything. I'm just getting those shapes marked in. So I'm going to leave the windows for now. Those we'll do in the trim, everything we'll do in the final video. Okay. So next thing I'm going to get done is I'm going to get this sandy road marked in too, so that we just have our basic parts here, and then we can sort of zone out and do what we want with the trees and the grass. Now remember, you can bake this very just like plain neutral greens, and that's like one of those choices that you get to make, just like the sky. So it could be, you know, a very, you wanted this like neutral painting for your house. It just depends on what you want, what look you're going for. So the same reference photo can really be used to create such a wide variety of paintings. You know, this could be a total neutral painting, something very serene, background-ish, not, you know, the main event in a room, if that's what you need or what you want or what you like. Or it can be as loud as possible, as long as you have that value scale, that full range of values. I really feel like anything is going to work. And of course, it's going to create, you know, a very different painting if you go loud versus quiet and soft. But it will work, like visually it will work. Excuse me. I have caught my children's cold, which has really not happened since in the last like couple years. You know, we're in Florida, and it's just like I feel like the sun really keeps you healthy. But yeah, for some reason I decided to film this long painting video today when I don't really feel great talking, but my only sneeze so far, so we're doing pretty good. So far, so good. So again, I'm doing this quickly for the sake of the video. You know, I don't want to be posting the longest video ever, but you can pause and like I said, I tend to paint very quickly in general. Again, unless it's a commission where I'm just forcing myself to go slower and really make sure that everything is very intentional and is exactly how my clients like it. So it's totally fine. If you're a slower painter than me, that would be totally normal because I do just paint quickly. Okay. So I get some of the darker points here. I don't have color that I normally use. It would be like the paint, a Payne's gray would be like how I would normally get that shadow. Let's see. And I'm checking it on the screen here because that really helps me. Hmm. So that, again, it's not super realistic how it would look. It's a little more colorful than a typical. Sandy road, you know, tire track shadow is going to look, but I like it. And every brush that I use, let's see if I can even see the size on this one anymore. This is an 18. No, maybe like a 16. All the brushes that I use, are linked down below. Everything I use in this. Okay. So I like that for now. I'm gonna get some thick paint strokes there. I like being able to really see those brush strokes. Okay. Especially down at the bottom of the painting. For some reason, I always really like that because if you think about where we typically hang a painting on the wall, it's probably going to be up a little higher. And I think I really like when the bottom of it really, you can see those visible brush strokes really well. Okay. All right. So now we get to decide how we want our trees. So in the photo itself, there's all these different flowering bushes, and they're just starting to flower. I must have taken this photo, you know, early in the spring, but there really are so many different little bushes and grasses that are starting to flower, and I'm really going to play up on that. Like I want to make mine pretty colorful here, and just really get like all of my favorite greens and yellows. Probably some pinks. So I want to have like, these grasses are really, to me, going to be the focal point of the painting. So like a lot of like high contrast in there with the colors. Don't love this. I again, I'm doing this painting without a real plan because I really wanted to create a start to finish example of my work for people to follow along with, but like really in the way that I paint, which is I make a lot of decisions in the moment. And I wanted this video to be reflective of that. So I definitely, make changes and change my mind and figure it out as I go type of stuff. And if that's not, how you work best, then you're not required to do it like me. Let's see, I just need a little more of my green gold. But that's how I work. I don't like to be too locked into a plan. All right. Where was I? Again, I'm getting lots of color blocked out, and we're going to come in the third video and we'll really do our details. Like we'll get everything, really nailed down that we want. Up more of like a grassy green. I'm gonna have some of that in there too. I love green gold so much that I definitely have to watch myself or I end up with a painting filled with green gold or like a whole series of paintings. There's definitely been times where I look at my recent body of work and I'm like, okay, Lily, you gotta like mix up the palette here a little bit. I like what I like. Okay, so you can see that I'm sort of doing it in little groups because I want to, my goal right now, before we come back in and do the details, is to just have like some clear sections in the bushes and the grasses and the trees. And then when we come back in, we can really do the details. Okay. So to give a little bit more of a close look at everything, that is the sun and the sky as it stands right now. This here is how I blocked in the houses. And you can see I was trying to really leave those brush strokes in the road. And now I'm just, loosely blocking in some of the bushes and also realizing that once again, I'm forgetting those darker values. So we're going to make sure that we're getting those in there as well. And there's little things that you're going to do here. Like, my brush strokes are all going to be smaller as I get in the distance. And like down here in the foreground, they can be, you know, a lot bigger. So there's tiny little things you do like that just to give visual clues in the painting. So this is where we're at right now. It all looks a little, you know, ugly duckling, muddled together, but I can see where it's going. I don't love this road, but I am going to wait on it and see how I feel about it once we get all the grasses done. And then at the very end, I will come back over that probably and make it, you know, better how I like it. So just continuing on, I'd like to have, again, all of the trees and bushes sort of filled in before we move on to the third video, in which I'll be really doing the details. And at this point too, I know I've talked a lot about that value scale and really having all 9. Sorry for the sigh. As I mentioned, I'm like struggling through a cold today, which never happens. I have not felt even a little under the weather in probably 2 years. So, which is why I really don't mind. I think that it's good for our bodies. It cleans everything out. It clears us. It's a good reset, especially on this second day of spring. But sorry for the occasional clearing my throat or deep sigh. So talking about those 9 values on the value scale, in this middle stage, it will tend to look a little gray, like muddled together. Not gray, but like in that middle value range. And when we come in the third video and we really add in those details on top, that's when we really can make things pop. And, you know, again, I don't always do it this way. I don't always break it into 3 parts. I don't always come in later to add more details, but I do think that that's a good way to do it when you're learning. Definitely, I mean, hands down, it's the way I would teach, the way I do teach my students to do it. So that's why I'm doing that on here. It's really good to be able to bring your painting to sort of a 70% point and then come in with some detail work. And that's when you really make sure that you have those brightest whites, the darkest darks. Not that I really don't use black, but this Courbet green that we're using is really good for that. Payne's gray is really good for that. And I really am so happy that I did this sun up here, because that's really giving us that, you know, bright white. Little fir tree action there, the junipers. This is, you know, from a photo on Martha's Vineyard, but it really could be a photo from any coastal region. I just got this little piece of green. Let me get it out of there. and I'm really just keeping in mind here, I do want to make sure that what translates in this stage of the painting is the relative, distance and composition, and the distance, just where everything is in relation to one another. Even though I'm going to come in with details and really tie it all together, that's what I want to have be clear already. And you may not have noticed, you may have noticed I'm using all one brush for this. That's typically how I work. You're welcome to separate everything out with multiple brushes. That's what I'll do when I come in the third video. So, oh, this is the size 16. I don't know what the bigger brush I was talking about in the sky, that was probably a 20. I haven't really thought about my brush sizes recently. I haven't bought new brushes in a long time. I have so many. But again, all of that will be linked, including the one it is. This is by Utrecht. I don't like this one as much as this one, which is the Princeton Aspen series. This is my favorite, the Aspen series and the Dakota series. Those are hands down the two best. This is like less stiff, the bristles. And I don't love that, but not a huge deal here. When the bristles are stiffer, it really helps to move the paint around on the canvas. And I like that. But this is working just fine. Bird in the hand, or a brush in the hand. Not trying to make dad jokes today. Okay. All right. I'm going to finish this tree line up here next, and then I'm going to come in with some Indian yellow in the bushes. And then we're going to stop for today. And we will come back tomorrow, or I recommend you waiting. It depends on what you like. Maybe come back tomorrow or keep going later today and see how you like adding the details wet on wet while this layer is still wet. And then you can wait a few days and come back in and try some more once it's dried. And that'll really give you a nice contrast, an idea of which one you like better, because there are painters who really prefer doing the whole painting while the paint is still wet, and that would be a wet on wet oil painting. I do both. Personally, I prefer to do it all in one go for multiple reasons. It's just really what I like. It's the feel that I like on the canvas. I feel like it gives me the look that I'm trying to achieve on my canvas. But again, it's so personal preference, and that doesn't mean that I never come in and work. I guess I really like how the paint moves across the canvas when it's still wet underneath. So, or when you're straight on the canvas. And I don't love how the paint moves across dried oil paint. So I I think that's what really makes my decision for me. But again, it's like it's such a personal preference type of thing that it's something I really encourage my students to, sort of try both ways to see what works best for you. I'm gonna just fill in down below here, and we're going to take a break. So sometimes I do still keep going with that same brush, even when I switch over to, adding in a little bit of a different tone. Still works, but I'm going to switch over to a new brush just because I was not loving the bristles there. They were so soft. So now I'm on the Aspen series by Princeton. And this is a size 6. So, I think this says 16, but this is not a size 6. I don't know. Maybe Utrecht has like a different sizing system. Anyways, I don't recommend that brush. I do think that, yeah, this is a 12 in the Princeton series, the one that I was talking about originally, and I said 12. It is a 12. So sorry about all that. Again, they are fully linked below. Oh, I just love this color so much. This is Indian yellow mixed with a little titanium white, and it's just like the most beautiful, like sunshiny orange color. Probably my favorite color. This and the green gold. I need to just paint an entire canvas, like do my own, like, faux Rothko in green with green gold and Indian yellow for my own wall. Obviously, I'm not gonna like copy a famous artist and sell it. I just mean for my own wall, because I literally could just like, I want to like bathe my eyeballs in this color all day long. Okay, honestly, maybe I need to come up with like a list of things to talk about before I start filming these, because otherwise I just clearly say really weird things. Never know. Okay. And I'll show you at the end and up close, but you don't have to like fill in every little gap right now. And that is the beauty also of having this undercolor, this underpainting color, is that it shows through in places, and it's beautiful, and it adds to the warmth and the feel of the painting. So versus having, like white show through, that doesn't really work the same. But you can blend it all in. When it blends with the green, it is really nice. There, where I wanted this brush to be. I like having this really dark anchor over here and down here. All right. And the other color, I'm going to bring in some other colors, some lighter colors too. In the third video, we're going to use the nickel yellow that I love so much. It's like this beautiful, I want to say like lime green, but that doesn't really do it justice. It's another one of my favorite colors to include in here. So we're going to add that in the next little video. These two colors, we have the nickel yellow here and Cinnabar green light. So I'm going to use the same brush from the Indian yellow and add in this So it's, I mean, it says nickel yellow. It's really a green. It's this like light, yeah, not lime. I guess I'm going to correct that. The Cinnabar green light is like a lime green. The nickel yellow is like an ice green. That's how I would describe it. It also mixes really well. Like it looks really nice as you blend it into the edge of that darkest green value that I used, the Courbet green, um, that nickel yellow. So it really like, it just is a really great color to use to tie everything together. Now, could you mix it yourself? Yes, of course. It's still just like, it's one of those that I use a lot. So I usually try to just include it on my palette. And it's on, you know, the palette list that I give and everything like that. No, it's like, is it required? No. Is it beautiful? Yes. And then the Cinnabar green light is more of a lime green. And this mixes well too. They both mix well with the other colors that I use on most of my palettes. You know, not just with that Courbet green. They work well with that green gold as well. The Indian yellow. And I'm gonna incorporate more of them in when we come in the final video to do some of our finishing touches. I'm almost done here for the moment. So I got a bigger brush. This is that size 12 Aspen, and I'm going to use this, mixing both. I've got both nickel yellow and the Cinnabar green light on my brush there. I should be wearing gloves, yes. And we're gonna get some larger brush strokes here in the foreground. Using a bigger brush is a really great practice also, just to get yourself used to, I guess, sort of relying on color and light choices more than fine brush strokes. That really can help elevate your art practice. Pretty much every art school makes you go through this stage of using larger brushes. Okay, so a few final, definitely gonna come back over this sandy road at the end. I didn't love how that worked, but stepping away for even like a couple hours in between painting sessions lets you sort of think about that, and you come back and you see like, how do I really feel about that road, so that you don't, otherwise you can get sort of stuck. You can be like, oh, I don't like that, and then you're trying to change it, trying to fix it, and it's just all blending together and nothing's fixing and nothing's getting better, and you can get really like stuck down a rabbit hole like that. So that's why, you know, when it wasn't really working for me, that's why I said, you know what, I'm probably going to fix that later, but we're just going to leave it for now. Otherwise, you will waste a lot of time and brain cells trying to sort of get that right. When sometimes all you need is to like let it be for a little while. Again, it could be a couple days or just a couple hours.
Okay, that's a wrap. I will see you guys in part 3 for all the finishing touches. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe. Okay, that's a wrap. I will see you guys in part 3 for all the finishing touches. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe.